The Battle for Willow Point, a tale of vengeance and victory. It was a warm July afternoon when I first saw Margaret Hensley storm across my lawn, her clipboard clutched like a weapon, her eyes fixed on my 12-year-old daughter, Lily, who was sitting quietly under the maple tree my late wife, Ellen, had planted years ago. We weren't throwing a party or breaking any rules, just grieving in the stillness of our lakeside retreat in Willow Point, Michigan. But to Margaret, a child finding solace in her mother's memory was an act of rebellion. This is the story of how a power-hungry HOA president turned a moment of peace into a war over land, lies, and legacy. By the end, you'll see how justice prevailed, but not without a fight that exposed the ugliest side of human nature. 3 years ago, I, Tom Bradley, became a widower when Ellen lost her battle with leukemia. Lily and I were left to navigate a world that felt empty without her. Ellen's family had owned a cozy cabin on Lake Huron for generations, a place where we'd spent summers fishing, laughing, and dreaming. After Ellen's death, the cabin sat untouched, its memories too heavy to face. But this summer, Lily, now old enough to articulate her grief, begged to return. She needed to feel her mother's presence again, and I couldn't say no. The moment we arrived, Lily ran to the maple tree Ellen had planted when Lily was a toddler. She hugged its trunk, her face glowing with a joy I hadn't seen in years. For the first time since Ellen's passing, I felt a flicker of hope. That hope lasted exactly 17 minutes. Margaret Hensley, the HOA president of Willow Point Estates, marched toward us with the authority of someone who believed she owned the entire lake. Without a greeting, she stood over Lily and declared, "This area is HOA property. Your daughter can't play here." Her tone was sharp, as if Lily's presence was a personal insult. I calmly explained that the land, including the tree, was ours, part of the cabin's deed since the 1970s. I pointed to the old boundary markers, still visible despite years of weather. Margaret smirked, gesturing to new yellow stakes that hadn't been there last time we visited. "The HOA had this land resurveyed," she said. "Check your deed, because this belongs to the community now." Her dismissal lit a fire in me, but I kept my cool, thinking this was a misunderstanding. Inside, I dug through Ellen's files and found the 1974 deed, clear as day. Lily owned 60 feet of lakefront property, more than any other lot in Willow Point. Margaret wasn't just wrong, she was trying to steal land from a child. When I looked outside, my stomach churned. Margaret was directing workers to set up equipment around Ellen's tree, as if planning to tear it down. This wasn't a mistake, it was a calculated move. The next morning, I tried to resolve things peacefully. I walked to Margaret's pristine home, where even the mailbox looked disciplined, and offered to show her the deed. She barely glanced at it. "The HOA board voted last month," she snapped. "This land is ours." Her refusal to engage felt personal, like she had a vendetta I didn't yet understand. When I suggested a professional survey, she scoffed, claiming her qualified experts had already settled it. Hours later, as Lily played near the tree, Margaret called the sheriff, her voice loud enough to hear through her window. "There's a child trespassing on HOA land. The father's aggressive. I'm scared." The tremble in her voice was pure theater. When the sheriff arrived, Lily's face crumpled with fear. "Dad, what did I do?" she whispered, clutching my hand. "The deputies, looking weary, told us to avoid the disputed area until the issue was resolved." Watching my daughter's joy turn to terror, I knew Margaret wasn't just fighting over land, she was targeting us. That night, I emailed the HOA board with copies of our deed, hoping they'd see reason. Margaret's reply was chilling. "Your old papers don't matter. The HOA prioritizes community safety." Her arrogance told me she thought I'd back down, too broken by grief to fight. She was wrong. Determined to uncover her motives, I searched online and stumbled on a 1982 lawsuit, Hensley versus Thompson. Margaret's family, the Hensleys, had sued Ellen's family, the Thompsons, claiming ancestral rights to our lakefront. They'd lost spectacularly, with the judge calling their claim a grudge without merit. Margaret, then a young woman, had never let go of that defeat. When she moved to Willow Point in 2020, after her husband inherited wealth, she clawed her way to HOA president, pushing land optimization projects that targeted our property. Her hatred wasn't about rules, it was a 40-year vendetta. Digging deeper, I requested HOA financial records under state transparency laws. The office clerk, visibly nervous, handed over years of expense reports. What I found was staggering. Margaret had spent $12,000 of HOA funds on emergency project surveys, landscaping without board approval. The contractor? Hensley Green Works, owned by her cousin. She was funneling community money to her family while harassing us. Her corruption wasn't just personal, it was criminal. Margaret retaliated swiftly. A county inspector showed up, citing a complaint about an unpermitted structure, the tire swing I'd hung for Lily on Ellen's tree. Lily watched, heartbroken, as I removed it. "Why does she hate us, Dad?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. That moment broke something in me. Ellen would have fought tooth and nail for Lily, and so would I. I hired a top surveyor, Mark, and a property lawyer, Susan, known for dismantling corrupt HOAs. The war was on. Mark's survey confirmed Lily owned 80 feet of lakefront, including the land Margaret claimed. Susan uncovered more. Margaret had spent $12,000 on a community plaza on our property, violating HOA bylaws. But Margaret escalated further, filing a restraining order, claiming I'd threatened her with fake texts and edited footage. The judge, swayed by her lies, banned us from the lakefront, leaving Lily unable to visit her mother's tree. Seeing her stare out the window, whispering, "It's like I don't exist," fueled my resolve. At the restraining order hearing, Margaret played the victim, tears and all, painting me as an unhinged widower. Her lawyer showed doctored evidence, but I was ready. I presented Lily's deed, Mark's survey, and the 1982 lawsuit, exposing Margaret's grudge. Then came the financial records, showing her theft from the HOA. The judge's face hardened. "So, Miss Hensley is harassing the rightful owner and misusing community funds?" he asked. He dismissed the order, confirmed Lily's ownership, and warned Margaret of criminal charges if she continued. Her courtroom outburst screaming about stolen land sealed her fate. But Margaret didn't stop. She emailed every homeowner, calling me a threat and demanding an emergency HOA meeting to protect our values. At the meeting, her presentation was unhinged, proposing to seize our land via eminent domain. I countered with the court order, financial proof, and her recorded meltdown. The room erupted. Homeowners demanded answers about their depleted funds. The board, once her allies, turned on her. In a unanimous vote, Margaret was ousted as president, and residents called for a criminal audit. The sweetest victory came when Lily chose to share the plaza built with stolen funds on her land with the neighborhood kids. "Let's make it a real community space," she said, her kindness shaming Margaret's greed. A week later, Lily swung on her tire swing, surrounded by laughing children, while Margaret watched from her window, defeated. Neighbors apologized, welcoming us back. Justice was served, not just for us, but for a community freed from a tyrant. Months later, we learned Margaret faced charges for fraud and abuse of process, her schemes unraveling under scrutiny. Lily's tree still stands, a symbol of resilience. Sometimes, the best way to defeat hate is to let it destroy itself, then build something beautiful from the ashes. What do you think about Margaret's actions? Have you faced injustice or bullying in your community? Share your thoughts below, especially on how we confront cruelty and unfairness. Let's hear your stance. Your voice matters.